Frenchie's Art Gallery, located on historic Oak Street beside the Maple Leaf Bar. With over 3,000 square feet of space, it features a large gallery front room and Frenchie's personal art studio. Frenchie's Art Gallery is also connected to the Maple Leaf Courtyard, which is ideal for the New Orleans night scene. Frenchie's Art Gallery, 8314 Oak Street. Yeah, you're right.
So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports NFL Draft Extravaganza, and I cannot wait for this show. In fact, it's so special, I pulled my check code out for the first time in 4 months. I'm ready to go. It's going to be a lot of fun. And as I said last week in the open of the show, this is a huge weekend coming up this weekend in the city of New Orleans and South Louisiana as a whole. Of course, the NFL Draft. The Saints have 2 first-round picks coming up with the trade they did with New England. They have 2 third-round picks and plus a second-rounder, so they should get some great help. But it's also the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. That thing's been going on for decades, and it begins on Friday. And don't forget, it's also the Zurich Classic. Remember, I had Steve Worthy on here last week. He is the tournament director, and this is the first year that they're going to do 2-man teams. And boy, do they have some great ones highlighted by, I think, the best team, Jason Day, we just see there, and Ricky Fowler. That's going to be a dynamite team. And then there's so many other great golfers, 7 of the top 10 in the world to be here, including that man, Jordan Spieth. It's going to be big news. Hey, but speaking of real big news, the biggest news of the day is Adrian Peterson, perhaps one of the greatest running backs in NFL history, is going to be a New Orleans Saint. It's official. He and Mark Ingram will be a tandem in that backfield. Listen, he was the MVP just 2 seasons ago. He came off of a terrible injury, and he had that great record year. He led the league in rushing, and then last year, of course, he got hurt. We'll see if he has any juice left. Hopefully, that'll be the case. The Kentucky Derby. I know it's not this weekend, but we're going to get a head start on it because I have Bernie Halprin coming up to talk about all the pageantry, all the beauty of Churchill Downs. I just love the Kentucky Derby. It's such a fabulous time, and I cannot wait for next weekend, but we're going to get a head start. Also, the NBA playoffs, it's the first round. It's been super exciting. They've been 2 sweeps, those by the 2 best teams, Golden State and Cleveland. But 5 of the 8 series have been or still are at 2-2. So we have some tight series right there. One of the ones that didn't go 2-2 or 4-0 was the only one left is the OKC Houston series, which is 2-1, or 3-1, excuse me. And these 2 guys, Harden and Russell, the 2 MVP candidates, have been electrifying to say the least. Hey, how about this? LSU and Tulane both had their spring football games. LSU's got cut short by bad weather, but it's always interesting this time of year to see some of the players that will be the stars for next season. Tulane also had their thing going on this weekend to a lot of success. Hey, by the way, right after this show, I'm going straight to Tulane's Turchin Stadium. I'm going down to the LSU baseball game. They're playing Tulane, and I don't know who to root for. I'm just going to root for a great game. That's it. But this show, speaking of great, I cannot wait. I have Duke Riley. If I had some stock right now, I'd be putting in this linebacker. He is the LSU MVP and also draft expert Mike Detillier. He is going to be here next right here on the show. Ryan Fitzgerald from the Senior Bowl. And Bernie Halprin is wrapping it up. It's going to be a great, great show. I cannot wait. Stay tuned.
This river of tears turns into tears of healing. This river of tears turns into tears of healing. Open your eyes, it's a beautiful morning. Look outside, the sun is dawning. The sky is crisp and blue, and I've got a feeling. This river of tears turns into tears of healing.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. This is going to be a draft extravaganza, like I said in the open, and I can't wait. Hey, nationally, you know, when I was in college and beyond, when you think of the NFL draft, you think of Mel Kiper. But when you get down to the Bayou, and I'll put my next guest up with anybody, including Kiper, McShay, any of those guys, His name is Mike Detillier. When I moved back 5 years ago, I kept hearing about this guy, Mike Detillier, and then I started reading his book from his Mike Detillier's draft report. It's as good or better than any I've ever seen, period. Period. I'm going to tell you right now, I got it right here. If you don't know about this yet, you got 2 days to the draft. You need to get on this. And you got 4 days till the end of the draft. So this is where you need to go. Mike Detillier, I got him live in person.
Thank you, Scott.
I had you on last year's draft show, and I also had you at the beginning of the football season this year. Welcome back, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's good to have you. By the way, tell people real quick that you can go to saintsreport.com if they want to order this, and get it sent over, maybe get here by the weekend. Who knows?
Yeah, saintsreport.com, MikeDetillier.com, and we'll get it to you real quick. First class, 1 day normally in Metairie, New Orleans.
This man is a hot commodity around these parts this week. Let's be honest, man. I felt fortunate and honored that you included me on your schedule. You have to be busy.
Yeah, it's 40, 50 shows a day, and so you just troll through it. I'm used to running the marathon.
Well, he's a good man. And by the way, him and Bobby Hebert together are pure magic when they're, and he's obviously on WWF
Stereo,
Radio.
brother. Cajun stereo.
Cajun stereo. Y'all are taking over, as I saw at that banquet.
That's it.
Clarence Vernon, I remember that. Hey, let's talk about this draft right now with the local guys first. We're going to get into the Saints' needs, and we're going to talk a little about Saints free agency and what you think they did. But even before I do that, I got to give you the news of the day. What are your thoughts on Adrian Peterson, one of the greatest running backs of all time? Maybe he's 32 years old. What are your thoughts about him being in New Orleans now?
I'd love to have the 25-year-old one instead of the 32-year-old one. But, I mean, come on. You know what you're getting now. You're getting a guy that's on the trail end of his career. He's going to be a number 2 guy here behind Mark Ingram. And he's to slow this game down. When you look at Sean, he's one of the premier play callers in the NFL. But as Bill Parcells has said about him, sometimes he gets the virus. This team will sometimes only run the football 14, 16 times in a game.
Right.
How many times have we seen a 3rd and 1 or a 4th and 1 situation, empty backfield, Drew in the shotgun? Come on, you're not fooling anybody there. This is a deal to try to get to run the football more, and also I think some patience to run the football. Because I do think in the NFL, the biggest thing that's changed in 30 years covering is the lack of depth, quality-wise, on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear you out.
Right.
This gives you that opportunity. And some people say these numbers don't mean anything, but all I know is it's fact. It's not pulled out of the sky. The Saints are 42-4 when they rush the football 30 times or more in a game. And that's not just at the end of the game. That's from start to finish. You've got to be able to establish a running game and get some balance. Also, you got a 38-year-old quarterback you're trying to protect. But this is a 1-year deal, and you're going to have to draft a young back.
I got a great segue because I used to do a show called Countdown to Signing Day, a national recruiting show. And we brought in Adrian Peterson from the Houston area over to Atlanta to be on the show. And he was the best player, I thought, at that position we had in that 15-year period of the show. But the guy I'm going to talk about next is the closest thing I've seen to him on the college level, and his name is Leonard Fournette. You have the floor. Leonard Fournette weighed 241 at the combine. He's 228 at pro day. What will an NFL team be getting with this superstar?
Well, what you got in Adrian Peterson, you'll get with Leonard Fournette. Heavy-duty back that can carry the football 18, 22 times a game. He's a north-south guy, but the thing about him that sticks out, his ability to one step, he's fast. One step and he's fast.
And that's rare, isn't it?
Because, listen, a 230-pound guy, normally, that's a build-up speed. Not with him. You see him just running away sometimes from cornerbacks and safeties. The only guy in recent years that have been able to do that is the guy you talked about, is Adrian Peterson.
Right.
Now, he's going to have to improve in 2 areas. One, and he told me this summer, as a pass protector, he's not been asked to do a lot of it. And secondly, while he can catch the football, a lot of times it's a bobble. In the NFL, you know what that means? It's incomplete. So I think he's a top 5 pick. He's my 2nd-rated player in this draft class. And you can make a pretty strong argument that he may be the best player in this draft class to help you today. If I need a football player to help me win today, it's Leonard Fournette.
All right, I know you like Jamal Adams, top 5 pick, most likely, and Tre'Davious White is a possible, maybe even probable first-rounder. But my next guest in the show, or 2 down from now, is a guy named Duke Riley. And Duke Riley went to John Curtis. He was a star there, and he has worked his way up gradually. And I read something in your book, because I read it from top to bottom. You said this guy, his rise from the end of his junior year to the end of his senior year was bigger than anybody else in the draft. Please explain.
It's unprecedented. No one in August thought Duke Riley was going to be anything more than a free agent.
Right.
He had basically special teams guy, specialty play. All of a sudden, he hits the scene. And what he's been able to do, he's tailor-made for the NFL. He's a guy that can run the field extremely well, sideline to sideline, play in reverse, sure open field tackler, help you on special teams. It's back-to-back years LSU has had a player come from a free agent grade in the summer to be either a late second, early third round pick. Debo Jones, it happened to him a year ago. It's going to happen to Duke in the next few days. I think he ends up being a late second, early third round pick. I hate to say this, Scott, but I know you've spent some time.
I got chills thinking about it.
I think if he's there in round 3 early, the Saints take him.
They got to take him, please.
But I will say the one team that has talked to me more about Duke Riley than anybody else, the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, not another one.
Listen, I hate to give you the bad news, but it is what it is.
Oh my! Well, why not go back to the tree? I mean, it just fed you Deion Jones, who obviously had a great rookie. And the thing about Quan, Deion, and obviously Duke, they all didn't get their start until their senior year. Hey, let's move forward real quick before I get to the Saints' needs, because I know that's what everybody here wants to hear. Out of these other guys, another John Curtis guy, Malachi Dupree, Ethan Posick, Traven Doral, and Kendall Beckwith. I mean, real quick, what do you think about those guys' chances getting drafted mid-rounds?
Malachi Dupree is, I think, a third-round pick.
Okay.
He's caught in a real thick draft class. Kendall Beckwith, I think a lot of teams love what he did as a senior. Question mark how well he'll do in the coverage part of the game. Right. Ethan Posick can play across the board. Center, guard, tackle. I think he's an early third-round pick. I think it'll be quite a run to see who gets picked first between Duke and Posick. I think Riley edges him out.
All right, I got to get to the Saints because everybody wants to hear, who do you think right now? Last year, you told me without doubt on this show that Sheldon Rankins would be the first pick. Are you, and you were right, he was the first pick for the Saints. Are you just as sure about your selection now, or do you have some thoughts it could be a couple people?
No, for me, it came down to Derek Barnett, who I have the Saints picking at the 11th overall pick. And if it wasn't him, it was Hassan Reddick, who's played all across the board at Temple. But I think if Derek Barnett's on the board,
got to take him, huh?
He's the guy you take. He broke Reggie White's sack record at UT.
Pretty remarkable.
Most people couldn't name you one guy other than Barnett on that front seven for Tennessee. And look what he was able to do. But he's like a really good speed skater. When he cuts that corner, he gets low, he's on balance, and then he turns speed into power. And the Saints need another guy that can help Cam Jordan and have that bookend off the edge. And if you can get your cornerback, and then Duke's available in round 3, you have helped your defense out quite a bit.
All right, well, we got the pick now. The Saints do, in place of, obviously, the Brandon Cooks trade. At 32, where do you think they should go there?
Well, I think you should go cornerback, even though I still believe somewhere in this draft process, they will make a deal for Malcolm Butler. I still
believe it?
I still believe
you
that'll
still
happen.
Believe it.
Listen,
okay.
You didn't bring him in to wine him and dine him and cut him basically a financial deal. You're going to tell me that you really didn't know what the Patriots were going to ask in return for him? I think, and why would I say it publicly, leak it out, if I didn't really have a tremendous interest? I think somewhere in this process, they will make the deal for Butler, but I think they don't want to give up 32. That's where I think is going to be one of two things. Either they pick a cornerback, Kevin King from Washington is a likely guy if he's still up on the board, or a trade back. In essence, dealing back, go 5 or 6 spots, get you an extra second, get you an extra second-round pick, and extra picks. Remember, you don't have a 4th and a 5th. So if I could pick me up an extra 3rd, I'd have 3 third-round picks to deal with.
They don't. Do they? They just don't deal back very often, do they?
Well, they haven't. But if there's a year, it's this one to do it.
Deep. I know you like T.J. Watt, and I know you like D'Adore Jackson, but there's a guy from Ole Miss that I know you love because I hear you on other shows. Yeah. I've been cheating and watching you. Who's that guy?
It's Evan Ingram. I think he'd be a great fit for this offense. He's a hybrid wide receiver that plays tight end.
Yeah.
In this offense, he's catching 75, 80 balls.
Super athletic.
A year, great speed. Archie Manning and I were talking about him last night. He was like, Mike, I just wish Ole Miss would have thrown him the ball more. Because he's a big-time player.
They stopped throwing it to him. I mean, last year they threw a lot. It was weird. I watched that.
Part of it is, remember, once Chad Kelly went down and then they lost their left tackle, you needed somebody to help protect Shea Patterson, who was running for his life. I think if he's there in round 2, I wouldn't be surprised. That's who they end up selecting. He eats up the catches that Brandon Cooks had with this football team. It's not going to be Ted Ginn Jr. Ted's a guy that's going to catch 50, 55 passes. I think in this offense, Evan Ingram would catch 75, 80
I can already
passes.
tell I need a half hour you. I got Duke Riley coming up and all these guys. Okay, real quick. Is there a Sproles type that you think they might get in a mid-round or early to mid-round or anything like that?
Man, he grew up right down the road from me, Elijah McGuire.
Oh, from
UL Lafayette. He went to Vanderbilt Catholic in Homer.
Excuse me, I was just in Lafayette. They prefer University of Louisiana. So there you go, Lafayette folks. I took care of you this time.
Man, listen, I've been through the whole deal. Southwest Louisiana, the whole deal. But, man, I watched Elijah play so much football. He was a quarterback at Vanderbilt. Goes there, basically breaks every record. Tremendous edge runner, catches the ball well coming out of the backfield, can also return kicks. I've always said this about him. He's Louisiana's version of Reggie Bush.
I love it. I love it. I got to ask you, Saints free agents, okay? They went linebacker deep. What do you think about those guys, and what sticks out with you with their free agents?
A.J. Klein as the middle linebacker. This will be the 5th middle linebacker on your football team in 5 years. I think he's a super pickup, smart guy, and you didn't see any drop-off in Carolina's defense when he came into play. And on offense, Larry Wolford. Man, listen.
Whoa, he's good.
One of the things you have to understand is that Jari Evans, when you picked him up, he really solidified your offensive line. Now, you were having a lot of problems in the preseason. Larry Wolford becomes a big-time player. But I think the best addition this offseason on offense is a guy you've already had on the team, a healthy Teron Armstead.
Yes.
Because if you have him healthy, you've protected the blind side of your 30-year-old quarterback, and he is a top-flight run blocker.
Dude, this is the best in the business. Seriously. This is like a fine wine, man. He just grows and grows on you, and he gets better and better with age. You are the best, dude. I love you.
Scott.
I love your spirit. I love your attitude. And you're homegrown.
I appreciate it, buddy.
I love that.
Well, I always love good food, and so this is terrific.
Take care of it, baby.
Appreciate it, brother.
That's Mike Detillier. Check his draft report out. Go to either MikeDetillier.com or what's the other one?
Saints Report.
SaintsReport.com. I wish I had another half hour with him. All right, we'll do it next time. Hey, coming up, I've got Ryan Fitzgerald. He is with the Senior Bowl. He knows these guys inside and out. In fact, he knows Duke Riley very well. And Duke Riley will be my next guest, the LSU MVP after that. And then later, Bernie Halprin. Coming up next right here on Prime Time Sports. Oh, welcome back after Mike Detillier. I don't know what's left to say, but we're going to try right now because I have a Senior Bowl scout who, by the way, came on this show right before the Senior Bowl 3 months ago or so. And he also came on this time last year during the draft, the same show that Mike Detillier was on. And here he is again. His name is Ryan Fitzgerald, and he knows these guys as well as anyone because he scouts them all year long, and he recommends them to Phil Savage, who is the executive director of the Senior Bowl. And welcome back to the show. Maybe one day I can get you and your boss Phil together here and we can talk, but I know you live here. It's always good to have you. Welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me, Scott.
Let's get after it.
Yes.
All right? I got to start with the LSU guys. I touched on it with Detillier a little bit, but, you know, everybody knows Leonard Fournette.
Right.
But I think there's another guy in this draft that you might like a little better, and obviously I think he's projected to even be drafted higher. But tell me why you like Jamal Adams so much.
Yeah, I even last year when Leonard Fournette was a sophomore and he had that, explosive year, obviously, everything. I still
2,000 yards just about almost.
Yeah, and you ran over everybody at Auburn that week 3. I still thought that the best player on the team is 33. Was
Jamal Adams.
I thought so. I mean, especially for the NFL and what he's going to do at the next level. And when you look at the top 10 right now, too, everybody has a little something. Myles Garrett even is not. I mean, he's hasn't showed up in some games. Jonathan Allen's got some injuries. Latimore's got the hamstring. Reuben Foster's got some off the field stuff. As far as the cleanest guy in the draft, the guy that is safest pick, I think at the very least, a baseball analogy, he's hitting a double. He's not striking out. He's at least a starter for many years. And a good,
so you're saying he's the biggest
contributor.
Can't miss prospect?
I would, and the whole draft, as far as if I had to put one guy that you could sleep well at night knowing that you've got a guy that's going to be there for many years, I would say Jamal Adams.
I talked to a guy in the LSU athletic department yesterday, asked him about him. He's been there 25 years.
Right.
I'm not saying names, but he said
I think I know what you're talking about.
The biggest leader that LSU's had, in his opinion, in 25 years that he's been at LSU. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah,
because that speaks volumes to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even at the pro day. You could see a pro day at the spring games, at the practices, in the film room all the time, just a constant leader. I mean, guys that are just doing the bench press at the pro day, he's right in their ear. He is an absolute, no doubt, leader. I think he comes on any defense at immediate impact.
Well, Fournette, we don't get to. I just talked about that with Detillier, but also we have Tre'Davious White, who's a possible first-rounder. Right. LSU might have 3. But there's a guy that could go in the second or third round who's going to be on this set next. Right. His name is Duke Riley. Yeah. You saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's probably had the biggest meteoric rise, kind of like another LSU linebacker last year, Debo Jones. Right. So you knew both of those guys from the Senior Bowl. I feel you know them well. Tell me about what you think of Duke Riley.
Yeah, Duke, kind of in that same situation with Deion last year, one-year starter, special teams demon. I remember, this year, like one of the first games I saw him, I remember on the ride home texting Phil saying, he's got to have an invite. This guy, he can play. He's got that same.
But what was Phil's first reaction? Because he hadn't started for 3 years.
Right, exactly. At first, I think I texted him the exact one was, have you seen 40 play for LSU yet? And he said, not at the time. But Phil is also the color commentator for Alabama, so he usually does with LSU maybe that week.
Did he call you a homer? You
right.
live in
No. He said, I think you might have wrote are you sure or something because he hasn't seen him. He comes the Alabama week. He's the color commentator on the ride home from the Alabama game when Duke had that outstanding game, including right down by the goal line. He texted me saying, great look, he's coming. I sent an invite. Great player. He's got that exact same kind of Deion Jones where aggressive, just go for it. 3rd and 1, get off the field. He sees it and goes.
And there he is at your Senior Bowl practice. Yeah. I got to ask you, man. I just had Mike Detillier on. He loves a number of guys, including Derek Barnett, Hassan Reddick, and others. Right. Who do you like potentially for that first-round pick and why, the first one?
Well, Derek Barnett's obviously a great player, and you get that if you sit next to Sheldon Rankins for those next how many years, that would be outstanding. But Hassan Reddick is, just unbelievably awesome story. He wasn't in my area for the region. He's obviously up in Temple. But I tried to at least see 1 or 2 tapes going into the Senior Bowl
Hassan
week.
Reddick, right.
I tried to see at least 1 or 2 tapes going into the Senior Bowl week all year, 115 guys coming. Tears his ACL his junior year of high school. Tears his other ACL senior year of high school. Tells me at the Senior Bowl when I'm talking, he's like, all right, I guess it's time to go to work now. No scholarship offers, goes to Temple, has no idea what he's going to play. Walk-on corner, walk-on safety, and now I turned on the Notre Dame game as a junior. His first rep and his last rep is 100 miles an hour. And same thing at the Senior Bowl, and all the way up to 4 or 5 at the Combine, and now he might be a top 20 pick. And it's a really, really cool story to see guys that go from.
I'd be shocked if he's not in the top 20.
Yeah, to see a guy go from tearing his ACL as a junior and a senior year in high school and never even getting one scholarship offer to a top 20 pick in the draft.
You've told me you love safeties,
right?
So you told me this. You said there's never been a great team from the 70s to now that didn't have a great safety. Is there a safety that the Saints should take because they already have Von Bell and Kenny Vaccaro? Yeah. Who do you like?
I think on defense, it's the most important position, especially now in the NFL, with as far as how many 70% of the time you're a nickel, But Malik Hooker, I heard the other day too, Daniel Jeremiah, who used to be with the Ravens, said if you could take Malik Hooker and you could be promised that he gives you 75% of Ed Reed's production, would you take him 1 overall? Would you take him 1 overall? That's about 45 picks, 8 or 9 to the house, and and when you can
number 1 overall.
No, I mean he was just saying for top 50 or one, would he be a number 1 overall? If someone could promise you that he gives you 75% of what Ed Reed gave you, would you take him number 1 overall? I think you can make a heck of an argument. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm saying, but he's a game changer like that. He immediately gives the possession back over, right to your offense.
Would you say he's the second best safety in this draft behind Jamal Adams?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously Jamal's more secure with being a 3-year starter and he gives you everything. But Malik Hooker's got a little bit of that, 1 year, big 1 year. But he is, 7 picks and a couple of them in the house. It's impressive.
Well, I know you love T.J. Watt. I just talked about him with Detillier, though. Is there another linebacker, maybe with that second pick that you think? Because the Saints got a lot of linebackering help at free agency. But, You always want another one. Is there another one out there you think they should groom?
Yeah, T.J. Watt was obviously heavy hands, explosive, violent. Love the guy's motor. But, Gerard Davis is also from Florida. Is outstanding.
Gerard Davis, yeah.
At his Florida Pro Day, I mean, he looks the part. He's a physical specimen that will come after you and can run. If you can't run in this league and you can't cover anymore at linebacker, there is no, I'm a first and second down linebacker and you come off the field on third down. If you can't run and you can't play nickel and you can't play, in the sub packages, you're not going to be picked very high as a linebacker. And can't tackle what you can't catch, right? So
I've been told by guys that know a lot more about me, about this draft, like Mike Detillier. This is a deep corner draft.
Really
There's
is.
some that you like in this draft.
Love a lot of them, and that's why, like that 11th overall, some people are saying take corner for the Saints when they were talking, or anybody that was in this top 10. I think it's so deep that if you have like a 2 picks or you have a couple picks, you can pick
Who do you like?
Kevin King from Washington,
right.
Unbelievable player. Quincy Wilson from Florida, unbelievable player. Those guys are just standout, instant play. Garyon Conley from Ohio State.
Does Ohio State have like 8 defensive backs in this draft? Seriously.
But they all
stud.
have a lot of that common. Long, rangy, get your hands on you early, physical. When you're playing in these leagues, when you got guys like Julio Jones and Jordy Nelson, these long, rangy receivers, you got to get your hands on them early, and those guys are crucial.
What about a mid-range? I know the Saints just got Adrian Peterson, but they're still looking for a Sproles type in the draft. Do you know any running backs that might be able to be mid-round selections that they could maybe pick up and groom for a third down back position?
Yeah, from our Senior Bowl, Jamal Williams from BYU was outstanding.
love Jamal Williams.
Yeah,
BYU?
Awesome player.
Runs downhill.
Yeah. Downhill runner, and he takes what the defense. He doesn't have to try to bounce everything for a home run. He'll take his 4 yards if he's got to.
Did you see him in his bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very impressive. That's how he's been his whole career, just
200
giving the rock
yards,
and
200
pound him.
yards.
Great guy at the Senior Bowl. Kareem Hunt's the same way from Toledo.
Kareem Hunt. We talked about him with Detillier. Real quick, though, I don't have much time left, but a couple local guys that you might like. Anybody out there?
A guy that originally from Baton Rouge went to Grambling, Chad Williams. I mean, I saw him play against Mississippi Valley State.
Chad Williams is a great player.
He did those
Yes,
Randy
he
Moss
is.
things where as soon as the ball was snapped, his hand went up.
Think he might get a late round selection?
Yeah,
out of
late
him?
round guy, excelled at the Senior Bowl.
What about the guy I had
outstanding.
last week? Tanzel Smart was on my show. What do you think about him?
Unbelievable motor, all over the field. For a D tackle to be making tackles 17 yards downfield on screen passes, I mean that shows a lot of want,
and
a lot of
you
character.
tried to talk to him at the Senior Bowl, high character guy.
Yeah, and Coach Will Fritz, from Tulane, just absolutely loved him. I mean, in fact, he even said he's like, I let him. Guy is such a good guy that you could date my daughter type guy. You know? And that's the kind of guy that he is. As far as
I agree.
Character-wise and everything that at the Senior Bowl, out of the 150 guys there, he was in the top 5.
I spent 30 minutes with him last week here, and I feel the same way. He's a tremendous young man.
Yeah.
It flies, man.
It really does.
I know.
Thanks a lot,
it's
man.
only
Appreciate
2 minutes. We went a dozen. Hey, I got to thank him. And we had Mike Detillier. We're going to have, now we're switching to a player. We're going to have Bernie Halprin later to talk more about football and as well as handicapping the Kentucky Derby. But next, that's right, LSU MVP, his name is Duke Riley. He's coming up next right here on Primetime Sports.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my, oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At Mid-City Lane's the home of rock and roll.
The owners of the Detillier Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Detillier, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Detillier, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. Welcome back. I've been waiting for this segment. And by the way, that was Mark Stone on his steel guitar. He's phenomenal. I love having these musicians, but I also love having players. And last week, we had Tanzel Smart from Tulane. He's supposed to be a third, maybe fourth rounder, defensive tackle, but a guy that was with him over at the Senior Bowl is my next guest. He also happens to be LSU's MVP. And as you heard earlier from the previous two guests we just had, Mike Detillier and Ryan Fitzgerald, the biggest meteoric rise in the draft from the end of his junior year to the end of his senior year, much like his friend Deion Jones, who did the same thing and was a superstar with the Falcons this year. You know his name. His name is Duke Riley, a name that was made for football. And by the way, let me start this. Welcome to the show.
Appreciate to be here,
and
man.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
LSU MVP. I got to start right there. I mean, come on, you got Leonard Fournette on this team. Leonard Fournette is, oh, by the way, they say one of the greatest players ever to come out of, how about high school? Jamal Adams might be a top 5 pick in this draft, and likely will be. Definitely. You got a lot of studs up and down the thing, but Duke Riley is the guy that got named MVP. How'd it feel?
I mean, it felt good. You know, honestly, when my name was called, I was just looking like, did they really just say my name?
What?
You know, like what? But I mean, it was
at the banquet, right?
Yeah, it was at the banquet.
Right.
You know, it was an honor because it's not picked by the coaches, it's not picked by the the fans, or it's picked by the players. So I mean, just for the players to think that I was a guy that they always looked up to and to give me the MVP name, so it's just a blessing.
Well, I got to go there because you've earned it. You've done it, as they say, the old-fashioned way. You earned it. So. Listen, man, let's take us through this. You were a star at John Curtis, 2-time state champion under the great J.T. Curtis. I think that was 2012, was it 11 and 12? Y'all won state?
Yeah, back-to-back.
Junior and senior year. And then take us through your progression at LSU. I mean, you went from just barely getting in games to the leading tackler.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy process, Going into LSU, I knew that my situation, when I got recruited to go to LSU,
got the backpack,
yeah.
Russell Westbrook style.
Oh, yeah. When I got recruited to go to LSU, I walked into a room with 16 guys.
Right.
And so I knew my situation. The first thing I did was go to T-Mac, we call him, our special teams coach. I was like, put me out there. I want to be, it doesn't matter. If you want me to hike the ball, I'll hike it. It doesn't matter. Just put me anywhere, and I'll just be out there. I'll be your best special team player. And I started every team special teams as my freshman year, and sophomore year was special teams MVP.
Sure.
So I basically became a special teams guru. I knew my role. I knew that when my name was called and when my time would come, I knew I was going to take full advantage of it.
Speaking of your name, we're going to get off football for a second. Duke Riley. That is a name made for football. Where'd you get the name Duke?
Well, actually, my dad's name's Duke. And I think he got named after a dog.
Oh, a dog. That's nice. That's a good name for a dog, too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people's dog's name that's Duke, too, so it's funny.
So that's how you got, is that your given name? That's not a nickname?
No, it's a given name.
What's your full name?
Just Duke Riley, no middle name. Just straight Duke Riley.
Dude, this dude was made for football. You better make it in the NFL and make it big. By the way, I have to say this. I mentioned Deion Jones. Didn't start till his senior year.
Right.
Quan Alexander, I believe, didn't really start full-time till his senior year. The year before at Tampa Bay. These guys are productive linebackers in the league. Do you look up at them as possible role models to what you can do?
Oh, definitely. It's crazy because I played with those guys. Those guys are doing tremendous right now. And
well, you saw that highlight. That was
yeah.
a 90-something yard touchdown return against the Saints. An interception touchdown.
Back at home.
And you had Brandon Cooks trying to chase him down, and Brandon Cooks couldn't even catch him.
Man, he's fast. He's always been that fast. I mean, it was crazy because all me, Quan, and Deion can run. And we always used to race at LSU. So we always used to talk about who's the fastest, but we all know Deion's the fastest. But
Deion got 4.38. That was a life-changing 40-yard dash because he went from like fourth round to second just off that. And speaking of that, you had the second fastest time among linebackers at the Combine. I have to ask you because there's so much pressure on that. What is that like when you're, you take me through it. What is it like to be there knowing that so much depends on what you do?
It's crazy, but at the same time, I mean, the Combine is a tough process for players, but it's all about what you put in your mind. I mean, you keep positive thoughts and positive things going in your mind, and positive results will come. I was at the Combine, and a lot of guys are like, "Man, they're killing us, man. This is tough. Why they doing this to us?" And every time I heard someone say that, I just walked away, or I just always kept positivity going on in my head. And
it's the way to live life, brother.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's the way to live life. And another example was your Senior Bowl. I mean, I was talking to Detillier, who was there, and obviously Ryan Fitzgerald, who you gave a warm hug to. He's a big scout. He said, man, from the beginning of the week to the end of the week, once again, like he did during the season, he turned more heads than anybody else over there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that was another tough process for players. You know, they keep you all night with the interviews, and they wake you up early to practice. Sometimes they change the schedule to go earlier, you know. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm playing football. I'm talking about my life. I mean, I can do that all day. This is what I love to do, and this is what I hope to be doing for a numerous amount of years.
Speaking of your life, I mean, this is one of the biggest weeks of your life. Obviously, there's the week you get married. There's the week you're about to have a child, and that's a big day. I mean, and hopefully that will happen one day for you. But the week you get drafted is huge. Just at the beginning of it, you're projected to be a Friday night drafter, which means a second or third rounder, correct? So what's your process the rest of this week, and what are you thinking?
Process throughout the rest of this week. I got to work out every day. I'm going fishing tomorrow.
Love it.
Hey, I'm just taking, you know, a lot of people ask me if, how excited are you? You know, are you excited? I tell them no. You know, I'm anxious to see where I got to go because I'm ready to play some ball. But coming from John Curtis, you know, going through the LSU program, I mean, I put in so much work that I've always saw myself in this position. So it's nothing to really be excited for. I'll be excited when I'm holding up a gold jacket one day.
How awesome is that? You mentioned John Curtis. I have to bring this up because you've played for three pretty interesting guys, all right? Yeah. JT Curtis is going to be known as the greatest high school coach of history, okay? He's already right there on the wins, and every year their state champions are right in the mix. Forever, right. 50 years, all right? Right. But you went to LSU, you had Coach Les Miles, and then you had Coach O. Right. So talk about the three and what you took from each of these guys.
Well, I wouldn't be sitting right here in this chair talking to you right now if it wasn't for John Curtis. Coach JT changed my life, man. He coming from a place where I grew up at, you know, it's not all we know down where I'm from in Beers, Louisiana is shrimp boats,
some fishing,
and oil field, you know.
Right.
And that's honestly what I thought I was going to be doing when I grew up. You know, when Katrina hit, my life changed around. And
maybe when football ends, you can pick that up.
And I came to Curtis, and I mean, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I mean, I want to give so much back to the Curtis family. I mean, I owe them everything. And going to LSU, I was with Les Miles. Les Miles was, of course, a player's coach. We all loved him. I was fortunate enough to play with him for 3 years, or started my fourth.
Sure, yeah.
And then Coach Ogeron.
Coach O, baby.
Oh, man.
He's one of a kind.
One of a kind. It was crazy because I'm always a guy known for energy and juice, you know, and it was crazy because I kind of had to keep up with him sometimes.
Exactly.
I mean,
I'm sure he's outlifting half the team, right?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that
he's always the first. It's crazy because he's the first one in the weight room. He's always in there out with us, you know, pumping us up, running with us. I mean, it's crazy because he's going to do really great things. You know, a lot of people ask me like, "What do you think? How do you think Coach O is going to do?" And I tell them, I think he's going to do great because my first 3 years, nothing against Coach Miles.
Sure.
You know, I love Coach Miles. He knows that. But we lost 4 games my senior year. And in the past, if we would lose 4 games, just the character of the team, the whole team, I'm not saying just a few of us, but the whole team was, in the beginning we would lose 2, and then it would be like the season's over with.
Right.
You know, so it's just.
He kept some passion there.
He kept the passion there. He kept the energy alive. And it was crazy because after we lost my last senior game against Florida, at home. The home game, right. We had a away game at Texas A&M. And, you know, in this league, it's hard to go win in anybody's stadium, you know, and it's easy. We have the odds and ours. But we came back when we played Texas A&M, our last game, regular season game of the season, and we had our best practice throughout the whole year that Tuesday.
You were unbelievable that game.
So it was crazy, you know, just to feel that. I mean, that's the reason why I went to LSU, to have that family feeling.
I mean, listen, A&M got a lot of points, but that was after LSU was just killing them the entire game, and they got all these garbage points, so it made it look worse. But that was special. But I have to bring up your very last game, because my memory of that last game, besides y'all just owning the Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson, the Louisville game in the bowl, the Citrus Bowl, was that the one?
Yes, sir.
You held up the trophy at the end. It was you and Jamal Adams. I have pictures of it. You have a rose, a flower in your mouth, or oranges. But it just, the way y'all came out, and some previous LSU teams didn't really give it all at the end because it's like, oh, we don't want to be in this bowl. Right. And that big smile right there, that says it all, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's how my season ended. That's how my career right there ended at LSU, with a smile. I mean, it wasn't the best record. It wasn't. We didn't get to the national championship like we all wanted. But I was happy, and I was pleased to be a part of the LSU tradition, and I was just very thankful for Coach O and what he did for the team.
Look at him all wet right there. Hey, I got to ask you one last thing. You practiced against Leonard Fournette for 3 years. This kid from St. Augustine is a phenom. He has got to be tough to put down. I have a shot of you at practice. What's he like practicing against?
Oh, man, it's crazy because a lot of the NFL...
You got him right there.
Oh, yeah. I got him right there. But, I mean, that's, he got me a couple times, too. It just goes both ways sometimes, but...
He's a freight train.
He's an unbelievable guy, man. He's a workhorse, too. So, I mean, everything he has and everything that's coming this way, he deserves it, because I work out with him every day. But it's throughout the process, a lot of NFL scouts and coaches ask me, what's the toughest back you went against playing? I was like, I go against the toughest back every day at practice. So
There's no better. I mean, honestly. Do you think he's going to be a superstar in the NFL?
Oh, definitely. He's going to. I mean, he had an injury throughout this last year, but he's healthy now, and I mean, he's going. I can see him being one of the best backs in the leagues his first year playing.
Normally, I can't give players gift certificates because I don't want any part of any NCAA violations. But you are out of eligibility, so you got a great little spot.
Yeah, thank you.
Take there. If you got a friend you can bring or whatever, have fun. It's a great spot called Shays de la Shays on Maple Street. Hey, by the way, you're easy to like and easy to root for.
Appreciate it.
Duke Riley. Man, I knew I liked him before I met him, and I really love him now. I cannot wait to follow his career, and good luck with everything, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hey, we're almost done right here. I got one more guest, and we're going to talk a little football with Bernie Halprin, but it's going to mostly be Kentucky Derby. We did 50 minutes of football, and we're going to talk some horses right now. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and my next guest may be last, but he is certainly not least. Well, he also knows football like the rest of my guests, but we're going to talk a little about the draft, but the Kentucky Derby is right around the corner, and there's no better guest to talk about that than my man Bernie Halprin. He is the host of Inside Track on ESPN New Orleans. That's ESPN Radio New Orleans, and he's also an aficionado. Everybody at the track knows Bernie Halprin, and he's one of my favorite guests, and I've had him on a couple times. And here we are, number 3.
Hey, Scott.
3 is the charm. Welcome back, Bernie. How you doing, brother?
Good to be back. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Well, we've had a bunch of, I'm doing great.
All right.
We've had a bunch of great guests today talking, obviously Detillier and Fitzgerald, and of course the rest of them. We had Duke Riley as well just now. But now I want to get a little bit into football, because I know you know football as well as anybody too, but there's nobody I know that knows the horses. So you've heard the other guys talk a little bit about the draft. The first pick for the Saints. Do you have any ideas who you think they should go to?
Well, they need defense.
Right.
That's very obvious.
Right.
They haven't had any trouble the last few years, actually during the Drew Brees era, scoring points. That's never been a problem. So Mike Detillier, I know, liked Hassan Reddick a lot, the linebacker from Temple.
And Derek Barnett as well.
And Derek
right,
Barnett, the
those
defensive
guys,
end.
yeah.
Derek Barnett had the 33 sacks in 3 seasons. What Hassan Reddick did at the Combine,
Pretty nasty, right?
they're still buzzing about this guy.
Yeah.
He ran a 4.5 240, Scott. He's 6'1", 240.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. 11-1 broad jump. So I'd like him to get Hassan Reddick. I think he's a special player. But there's other guys. Taco Charlton, the defensive end out of Michigan.
That's
led
right.
the Big Ten in sacks last year, 6'6", 270.
What do you like about Taco Charlton, though?
He's got great burst.
Right.
He's got great length. He's 6'6", so that wingspan allows him to do that Neil Smith-type swim move that lets you get to the quarterback. But I think you're going to create pressure with a great inside linebacker, too, like Hassan Reddick. That's who I'd like to see him get if he's available.
And what about offense? Speed kills. You like anybody over there?
Well, the 32nd pick that we acquired from New England in the Brandon Cooks trade, you can get Brandon Cooks 2.0. John Ross, the wide receiver out of Washington, is an absolute burner. He set a combine record with a 4.22 240.
I mean, unbelievable,
They
right?
were checking their stopwatches
exactly.
afterwards. He's like a Brandon Cooks clone. There were some durability concerns because he's not the biggest guy. During his career at Washington, he got dinged up a little bit, but I think he would electrify the Superdome.
I mean, generally, if you run a 4.2, there probably is some durability because you have to be a little smaller to run that, although Chris Johnson didn't. He broke Chris Johnson's record.
Right.
Well, here's why you're here. Because the horses. When I think of the fairgrounds and I think of one person, seriously, you become my Pavlov's dog because I think of Bernie Halprin. If you don't know this guy loves the horses and he knows the horses. So let's jump into this right now. The Kentucky Derby. is coming up. I know you're going to be there. Before we get into, let's talk about a little of the pageantry about the Derby in Churchill Downs.
Sure. Let me correct this. I will not be at the Derby this year. I've got a 5-month-old daughter, and if I went to the Derby, I'd be divorced the next week.
You'll be watching it, though.
That's exactly right. I'll be watching it. The pageantry, it's the biggest day in all of racing.
Right.
You've got
the hats and everything else.
The hats, the women are dressed to the nines. The men are dressed, they're wearing sports coats much like yours today. Very stylish, cutting-edge stuff. It's a great day. Of course, I've been to the Derby, and it's the best day of pageantry. It's all pomp and circumstance, basically, but there is a horse race associated with it. And what makes the Derby so unique, Scott, is that it's a 20-horse field. You don't see 20-horse fields in North America. They don't exist. This is the only time in North American racing you'll ever have a 20-horse field assembled. The average field size in North America is 8 to 10 horses. So what this does is it creates a dynamic in the Derby that has to be accounted for, which is traffic problems. The best horse not only often doesn't win the Derby, I'd say the best horse more than often
rarely wins.
Doesn't win because
there's so many horses in there.
There's traffic issues. Risen Star back in 1988, the only race he didn't win, and it cost him the Triple Crown, was the Kentucky Derby because he drew the one hole and he was pinned in the whole race.
And that you talking about ever? Or just in the Triple Crown races? Well, you talking about the only race he?
Well, it's the only race in the Triple Crown series he didn't win. He came on to win the Preakness, and then he won the Belmont authoritatively, like his sire, Secretariat, going away by double-digit lengths, and he was the best horse in the Derby. But winning colors, the filly got loose on the lead. 49er was on her tail, and Eddie Delahousie was stuck on the rail in the one hole. So for this Derby, it depends a lot on which post position do you draw.
Louisiana's own Eddie Delahousie. I always love to hear that name. Let's talk about what's going on this one.
Sure.
Because obviously in Louisiana, you have the fairgrounds in New Orleans, and we had the Louisiana Derby that just happened a month ago, and before that the Risen Star, and there's a horse named Gervin that happened to win both those and jumped in to a horse that might have a chance, and now I'm not saying it's a favorite, but certainly one of the top 5 or 6 horses I imagine in this Derby.
He is, and I have him on my short list right here. I brought my notes with me today because there's a lot to cover. But Gervin is a horse that is going to kind of have that Rodney Dangerfield aspect.
I get no respect.
He's going to get no respect. That's exactly right, because the favorite this year, Scott, is going to be at least 9-2, maybe 5-1 or more.
Right.
There is no obvious choice. There are 4, 5, 6 horses you can make a logical case for. Gervin is one of them.
Can I ask you a question about Gervin? Because Brian Hernandez was on Gervin, correct?
Right.
And now Brian Hernandez has chosen to go to McCracken.
That's right.
So where does this leave Gervin and Mike Smith?
Well, Gervin did okay. He picked up Hall of Famer Mike Smith. There's no hotter rider in the country or the world than Mike Smith. He's like King Midas. Everything he gets on turns to gold. So it's actually, and I like Brian Hernandez Jr. a lot. He's a great local rider. He's done well at Churchill. He's won a Breeders' Cup Classic. So Brian Hernandez is very accomplished. But Mike Smith is an upgrade. So the Gervin connections got lucky when Brian Hernandez chose McCracken. And you can't fault Brian Hernandez for choosing McCracken. He's a little bit more accomplished than Gervin. McCracken was undefeated. He was the future book early betting favorite for the Derby before a dull effort in the Bluegrass where he ran third. But that race was after he missed some training with a slight injury, a minor injury. So he wasn't at his best. And I don't think trainer Ian Wilkes was trying to win the Bluegrass. I think he wanted to get a leg stretcher in him and get some fitness into him. I think McCracken will make a much better accounting of himself at Churchill Downs on May 6th.
And hey, by the way, Joe Sharp, who I'm trying to get on the show next week, and his wife, Rosie Napravnik.
That's right.
She's not obviously riding, but she is an accomplished jockey.
Oh.
And there you see Joe Sharp right there, and that is his former rider on Gervin, Brian Hernandez Jr.
Right.
But that's kind of becoming a little bit of racing royalty here, right there.
There's Rosie right there with one of their sons. They now have 2 sons. You know, Rosie took off. She was an Eclipse Award-winning rider. She had won the Fairgrounds riding title several times. She all of a sudden retired when she got pregnant, and I thought she'd be right back, but no such luck. She's actually enjoying motherhood. It gives Joe Sharp, though, Scott, a big edge. She gets on those horses in the morning, and she exercises his horses. And she can say to him, honey, this horse has a lot left in the tank.
That's an edge not many trainers, I imagine, have. I mean, obviously you have your jockey that'll do it, but if it's your wife, they'll be completely honest. Hey, let's get to it, because we're going to go kind of rapid fire through some of the horses you think.
Okay.
Who do you think would be that favorite?
I think it's going to be Classic Empire.
Okay.
Classic Empire won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year.
Okay.
He just won the Arkansas Derby. It was a very impressive performance. He had to weave his way through traffic. It was a very mature performance for a 3-year-old colt. And the trainer, Mark Cassie, who's one of the top trainers in the country, did a great job with this horse, Scott. He was the favorite for the Derby. He then had a foot abscess that wouldn't heal. They tried to come back too quickly from it, and he threw out his back. So they were trying to nurse him through a foot abscess and a sore back. I actually, from a betting standpoint, I didn't use him in the Arkansas Derby, much to my dismay.
And he won.
And yeah, I just thought he had missed too much training, and I thought it was going to be kind of a prep race, a tune-up for him. But he really showed me some class.
And I'm fascinated because I did my research as well. And when they win a race like the Arkansas Derby, you see the odds go up for their next race, and that's obviously natural because you only have a body of work to choose from. So let's go forward, because now that if there was a favorite in this race, which you say there's no clear favorite, who would be some of the other ones that are right there? Because we've already talked about McCracken, we've already talked about Gervin. Who's right there with?
Well, Always Dreaming. Always Dreaming is going to be a popular choice. He won the Florida Derby. He won it by 5 lengths in resounding fashion. He put up a big Beyer speed figure. You and I have talked about this on the show before. That's the number that says how fast did the horse.
So that's John Velasquez's.
John Velasquez is on for Todd Pletcher. John Velasquez has won a Kentucky Derby. He won it in 2011 on top of he was on Animal Kingdom. And for Graham Motion, the trainer Graham Motion had Animal Kingdom. Graham Motion now has Irish War Cry in this Derby. Irish War Cry is a very strapping son of Curlin. He won the
beautiful horse.
He won the Wood Memorial in resounding fashion. Also very, very impressive. He's actually a New Jersey bred, which you don't see that often. Most of the great horses are bred in Kentucky or Florida. He's an oddity.
He's a New
Jersey bred. He's a New Jersey bred.
You talking to me?
I'm a New Jersey bred, for that matter. I'm actually a New Jersey bred, believe it or not. So the fact of the matter is,
forget about it.
I say that he's, you know what though, he's a New Jersey bred, but he's actually a Kentucky bred in New Jersey camouflage. He's by Curlin, who's one of the best sides.
All right, I got a tip from someone. I didn't tell you, but it sounds like Gervin, but it's not. It's Gunnerva. What do you think about this horse?
I call him Gunnevera. That's how I say it.
I've heard it was Gunnerva. Well, that person was from Jersey.
Guess what? With horse pronunciations, different announcers will say things differently. I say Gunnevera. Gunnevera I like. What I like about him is he won the Fountain of Youth at Gulfstream. He absolutely ran off the screen. He blew Irish War Cry's doors off that day. Now, what Gunnevera needs is he needs a fast pace to run at. He's a deep closer. So I think in this race, as I mentioned earlier, you get 20 horses. You got a lot of pretenders in here. You got a lot of big egos, king-size egos of some of these owners who want to say, I had a horse in the Kentucky Derby, even if the horse really has no chance. A lot of those are the ones that run fast early and set a blistering pace. So Gunnevera, however you want to say it, needs a pace to run at. I think he'll get it. He's a factor.
Last thing as we close. You've already signed the balls. You've been here. Any jockeys, remember like Calvin Burrell when he was in, you always had a chance. Shoemaker back in the day. There's always guys. Mike Smith may be one of them. Any others, real quick as we close, that you think just because they're on a horse they have a chance to win?
You know, I'll tell you, Victor Espinoza. He's on Gormley. Victor Espinoza's got 3 Kentucky Derby wins, 2002 on War Emblem, 2014, 2015. He went back-to-back with California Chrome and American Pharaoh. When you've got 3 Kentucky Derbys on your resume, you kind of know what you're doing at Churchill Downs.
Listen to this man. He knows what he's talking about. This has been a whirlwind show. We just went through 4 guys who like to talk, and I like to talk as well. So, by the way, get yourself a nice little meal. All right, at least a glass of wine and a meal.
I want to say one more thing.
All right, one more.
On social media, you plugged the show, and you called me an NFL draft expert along with Mike Detillier. Calling us both NFL draft experts is like calling a Ford Escort and a Porsche 911, both sports cars. Detillier is the Porsche.
And he's humble, too. Can you believe this? Thank you so much, brother. Love you.
Thanks, Scott. Good to
Bernie
see you.
Halprin is one of the best. Seriously, whatever sport, he knows them all. We just happen to be talking about horses. Hey, I got a lot of people to thank. Will Hill, my producer, thank you so much. Everybody at CST, and, of course, WLAE, where we get it done with Kenny Juno, Josh Smoove, the Redhead Tsunami, and everybody else. Ken and Ron and everybody, thank you so much. We'll be back next week, and that's going to be the post-draft show, and we're going to talk more about the Derby and everything else under the sun. And plus, Rodney Holman, Tulane superstar, Cincinnati Bengal All-Pro, will be here as well. We'll see you next week.